Dr. Susskind.
Yes.
Baruch haba.
Okay, Rabbi Raskin, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me on a very special day. Okay? This is the holiday in which we most celebrate love. You asked me what the title of my talk was going to be. So what I said to you, Rabbi, was Love Be'av. Cute, yeah? And it's love, finding it, building it, losing it, and restoring it. Now, marriage is very, very important to me. It's the area that I've chosen to specialize in my work. And it's probably the most important thing in my life. I've been married for 50 years.
Whoa.
You say, wow, but you don't understand yet, to the same woman.
Your wife is wonderful.
My wife is wonderful.
Right.
And someone said to her, you were able to live with him for 50 years? She said it was like 2 days. Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av. No, we have, Baruch Hashem, a very wonderful relationship. Thank God I am very, very blessed. And I realize how incredibly important marriage is in life. So I would like to teach you some of what I know. Many, many years ago, Sukkot, I was out with a group, we're dancing in the street, and I'm exhausted, and I turned to the man next to me, and I said, I am exhausted, I feel like a lulav. He said, that's funny, you look more like an esrog. I said, what does that mean? He says, I'm an internist. You're out of shape. I said, round is a shape. I'm in shape. He says, you don't get it. You're too fat. You need to do something about your health. I said, I want a second opinion. I said, okay, you're also ugly. Now, the fact is, I don't think of myself as an esrog, but I think of myself as an olive. If you want to get the best out of an olive, you gotta squeeze it. You have to interact with the olive. I'd like to invite you to interact with me, whether it's because you're maintaining. There are 10 topics that I had in mind, and I'll quickly go through it. I suggest you take a look at the list, and then you'll decide and you'll guide where a lot of the talk goes based on what's of most interest to you. So one point that I want to make is the importance of a successful marriage to happiness. I want to talk about how does attraction start and what's the neurophysiology, the neuropsychophysiology of attraction. I want to talk about how do you maintain, that's point 3, and build that attraction. I want to take a look at your belief system in terms of whether you believe that love can be built. I want to talk about the notion of bittul, of bitul, of dedicated self, in English it would be self-abnegation. When I say, people say self-nullification, I think of someone with a Japanese sword committing seppuku, okay? That what Torah teaches us, and I'm going to be looking at things from the point of view of Torah, of psychological science, and also from my practice as a psychologist. And what Torah teaches us is the essence, the ultimate goal in life is to experience bitul. And I will hopefully get to that. If you're aware of that, Are you aware of it in real time? Does it influence your day-to-day activities? And I will give some examples of that. How do you move that awareness, that consciousness of bitul into real action? Are you not only aware, but point 8 is, are you hyper aware? Do you know how to read between the lines? And assuming you've brought it into action, are you able to assess the impact? When you treat your spouse in a dedicated way, do you see it having an impact? And finally, I want to talk about the issue of conflict and anger, which are inevitable in marriage. And what do you do to embrace conflict and anger so those energies improve your marriage?
What's the secret of 50 years marriage?
What is the secret?
Of 50 years marriage.
The secret is,
Yes, dear?
yes, two parts to it.
Say yes, dear?
I met my wife when I was 20. I was an undergraduate at Columbia. She was 16. My children are appalled.
Next time. This is the 45
Okay,
years
okay.
marriage.
But I was gor nispael, overwhelmed. But it was just a delight. Now, part of the reason that I tell you this is when we talk about what do you do to build the marriage, it's how often do you look at your spouse the way you looked at them very early in the relationship? When you were overwhelmed, nispael, okay? Sorry?
Nif'am.
Nif'am, okay? You know, you see a young couple, there, you go into a restaurant and you see them sitting at a table, you can tell from the way they look at each other. Now, there's a problem in that, and if I get into the neuropsychophysiology, I'll explain it. When you feel that way towards somebody, your ability to make judgments is radically impaired. You have many, many illusions. There's a story about a man who went to a psychologist. He said to the psychologist, "Is it true that infatuation is a mental illness?" The doctor said, "Yes, it's true. Your ability to reason, to make judgments is radically impaired." He says, "Well, is there a cure?" And the doctor said, "Yes, marriage." So, okay, so I will give you, you want, al regel achat, I will give you the secret. Al regel achat. And it goes to the middle of my talk. It's the issue of bitul, which I translate as dedicated service. If you look at psychological research, social scientific research on happiness, most of these authors will say, what is the greatest provider and protector of happiness in your life is when you have someone outside of yourself who you love more than yourself and who you happily serve. Now,
How is it possible that you love somebody more than yourself?
well, I'll give you a very simple example. I'll give you a painful example. It was one of the examples that got me off the derech. You're in Europe, husband and wife. It's the Holocaust period. Okay? It's 1938, right before the German Anschluss with Austria. Once the Anschluss occurred, the next day the Jews, they were finished. They couldn't leave the country. Passports weren't valid. You've got one visa. And the husband says to the wife, take the visa, take the ticket. I've got a ticket on the next plane. There is no ticket, there is no visa, there is no next plane. It's clear to me. She was more precious to him than his own life. A psychologist who I admire more than any other, Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist. The only mental health professional who I ever heard the Rebbe name by name with praise. The Rebbe had a special relationship with Frankl. It's another story. Frankl was a professor, psychiatry professor at the University of Vienna. He could have easily gotten a visa to go many places, Australia, Canada, England, but he had elderly parents. And he stayed. And he wasn't a fool. Now, no one knew how horrible it was going to get, but it was going to get bad. Frankl talks about the fact that there were people, that Freud is wrong. How do we know that Freud is wrong? Because he saw with his own eyes people in the camps who risked their own lives to take care of others. There was someone sick in the bunk, and this person who himself was starving gave his food to his sick neighbor. Frankl writes about that in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Frankl says if you have meaning, and for him meaning means there is something bigger than you that you serve. Now, when you act like that in your marriage, when you look to serve, some of that is, there's an argument. And you don't get just caught up in the facts because you know it'll go nowhere. You'll say your side and she'll say her side. And if you say to her, all right, I'm willing to do what you want. And she says to you, oh, so you admit that you were wrong, right? You admit you were wrong. And you say, no, I didn't admit that I was wrong. I don't care who's right or wrong. I just know this is important to you. And if this is important to you, I need to take care of it. Who talks like that? A man who's been married for 50 years. That's who's talking like that. And who's not suffering. You know what? If you take one thing from tonight, maybe you will take that there are people who in real life talk like that, and there are rewards. Marriage, look, let me go back to a religious point. Because we are taught that our relationship with God is a model, is an isomorphic metaphor for our relationship in our marriage. If you look at Eshes Chayil that we sing on Friday night, there are multiple ways to interpret it. Every verse can be interpreted as a relationship with God, and every verse can be interpreted as a relationship with your spouse. Torah says that what life and happiness, what you want to achieve in life, the highest level that you can get to, the greatest joy that you can get to, is when you can say, I can cope with anything that comes my way. I can tolerate any result because my single goal is to serve God. And if this is what God wants me to go through, I have an obligation to make efforts. My hishtadlut. I'm not supposed to be passive. I'm not supposed to wait for a miracle. But to get to a level of what they call an oved. I was talking to one of the Peleys tonight, or somebody else, about Mr. Gottsdiener from Wesley Hills in Muncie.
That's his
And I said, Gottsdiener is Abdallah, Abdul Rahman, Oved Hashem. The highest goal to get to. Not everybody's capable of it. People are capable of it to varying degrees. Is to say, what my life is about is learning to serve joyously. Now, it can happen in a negative sense of sacrifice. You are more important to me. Your happiness is more important to me than mine. I'm not going to tolerate abuse. I'm not going to tolerate doing things that are harmful to the children, alcoholism, losing the family fortune to gambling. But short of that, if it's a choice between my getting right now what I want, or you feeling taken care of, assuming you've got a reasonably abnormal couple. You know, most people are a little abnormal. So they're not more abnormal than usual. We're not talking about a personality disorder. If you do this, if your spouse gets that what you really are about is serving them, you get through their heart. I want